Hi, welcome back to my workbench. Today we're taking a look at the Ryobi 1 digital gauge air compressor. It's the new updated model compared to the one I previously took a look at, which you can probably find the link to somewhere down below or over there. It's got a supposedly updated set of features and certainly has the digital gauge, which is supposed to be somewhat accurate as opposed to the old one, which was just a vague suggestion as to how much air was in the tire and if there was air going into it. So that was kind of useful. Rather than mount a digital gauge to the old one, I just picked up one of these for, I think, $20 US. So pretty good value, although I'm suspicious they haven't cleaned up any of the problems like our little fan vent friend here, or the kind of just cheapness of the compressor, which wasn't compressing air on my last one. So let's take a quick look inside. If you enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below. Thanks. So I'm not sure if this will be any different than the other one we had in. I'm guessing that they're going to be using the same compression and, you know, check ball in the little plastic job. But let's see what's inside it. At the very least, this should give us a digital gauge, and it'll no longer be failed because the fan was broken. We'll get to see what an original fan looks like before it gets cratered by whatever happened on the last one. I'm going to guess that either it was a manufacturing defect and it just spun itself to death by hitting something internally, or something got jabbed in through here, although that's pretty recessed, so either they moved it up a little bit or it's the vents are a little lower, because I'm guessing that if that's the case, if it's actually in like that, you're gonna have a hard time actually poking something through there. I don't. Yeah, that's pretty tough. You'd need a very small object. It would have to be something, you know, thin, going in there at an angle. It's not easy to get an angle on here either because these aren't angled too much. They're not angled so that something would hit the fan. So I'm suspicious that the last one just had some kind of problem in the build and managed to nail something while it was spinning and just chewed itself apart. Or maybe just bad plastic, I guess, but I can't imagine how it would lose all its fins if it was just that the plastic wasn't very good. Ryobi certainly gets some points for the ability to take those things apart. So this is just an ABS plastic case with some rubber overmold on the outside. The case itself looks pretty clean this time. There's not a whole lot of crap in here, and the mold looks okay. Nothing to complain about, especially for the price. I don't know if I like the overmolding too much. Anywhere where I'm doing work on a car, I kind of don't want the rubberized crap on the outside of it. That just tends to disintegrate as soon as it gets hit by any of the nasty solvents. And you tend to be using those in a shop or even your garage or heck, your driveway if you're working on a car. So I don't know if I like that too much. It looks like we're still using our same fan design here. So that might be what happened to our original fan. Looks like this spring is just stuck out behind here. That could make contact with the fan pretty easily if it rotates a little bit, gets sprung out, things wobble around in here as they will, because this is all on rubber to try to silence the noise somewhat, so it is pretty mobile. And yeah, you could completely contact that spring with a fan and chew it to crap. So that's probably what happened to our original. Yeah, so that's not great. I don't know why that's like that either. It does look like there's a little indent here to hold that in. Yeah, that looks intentional, but I don't like that design at all. Let's see if we can get that on there a little tighter, just so it doesn't have as much chance of contacting the fan. Maybe that'll work. It seems a little better, with only one loop of the spring around it rather than two and having it sticking out the back. This looks largely the same as the other air pump. It's just a single piston in there. Oh, this time we're using, it looks like white lithium grease. So now they're using the same grease that I used to clean up the last one. Interesting. And other than that, this is largely the same assembly. It's just got the ball for the check. Let's see here if I can get it off without too much fiddling. Ah, there we go. All right. Yep, same exact type of assembly. So it's got a check ball in there for the valve. It's got a spring to hold that in place when it's not being pushed out by air, and to push it back into place. There's a seal, just a O-ring in there of some kind. Not sure what the material is, but looks cool. And that's it. So when the air is pushed through, it goes into whatever it is, and then when air tries to flow back in, that spring assist helps hold it all in place and keeps the air from escaping from your, well, whatever you're trying to pump up. Tires, ostensibly, or an inner tube, or mattress, or whatever you've got pumped up on the other end of this thing. And there's our new design. Well, let's check this out. There's our new design for the gauge. Looks like it's a pretty sparsely populated circuit board. I'm guessing there's an IC on the other side of it. Well, where would that be? Well, let's check it out. I'm not sure what we got on the other side of that. That doesn't look like there's room, but must have wedged something on there. Oh, there we are. Yep. There's the circuitry for the board. It's got a blob on chip, I would assume, wedged behind the screen. I don't really want to take that off, but okay, that's just a piece of foam to hold the back of the screen away from the board. Let's see if we can prise this up just a little bit. Oh, there we go. Wait, is that thermal compound? Well, let's take this off a little more. Uh-oh. That doesn't look good. That's a big solder blob on the inside of this. So the I'm gonna say that the soldering job on here, not stellar. Usually when you see huge chunks of solder just floating around inside a case, that's a bad sign. So not good. The quality on this probably about the same as the quality on that cheap little pressure gauge on the other one. Although it does look like it's in one piece. So there's the discrete circuitry for the board and probably the pressure monitoring and making the display information, and then that's probably a little display driver. And then there's some diodes, and that's it. Solder all over the place. Let me see if I can clean that up quick. Yeah, well, that's a little better anyway. Let's get this back on. Looks like those are just test pads. Looks like we're okay. All right. Oh, geez. Now how'd this go in? No, manufacturing date of 2018-806. So these were made quite some time ago. Looks like they're still going through stock on them. Which might be why they're $20. Maybe they didn't sell all that well. Or maybe they had a high failure rate. Looking at the inside of that, that could be the case. Wouldn't be surprised if these were failing just because of bad solder connections or solder floating around on the inside of those gauges. Oh, I was mistaken. There's the screen. This is actually that's just the backlight. This is the connector for the screen right here. It's one of those silicone jobs. Look at that. Wow. Just press fit in. All right. And no marking or indication of which side is up. Well, it functions anyway. All right, let's see if we can put this back together. Well, there goes one fan blade. So these fan blades, not that durable. I'll have to be replacing that now. So I had to go back and have a look at the tape to make sure I didn't damage this, and I didn't. There's nothing that came off. There's nothing extra on there. This is just the screen with its little silicone wiper on there to transmit the signal between the screen and its little pads on the back of here. And there's nothing interfering with that. Something to be said for actually turning it on before trying to take it apart and check it out. But then again, if you can't take something apart and put it back together and have it still working, it's a good indication that it's not very good to begin with. Although in this case, I don't even think this has anything to do with taking it apart. This just seems like it's a failure on the actual part. The solder that was rattling around in there and the extra solder that was sitting against the board from the ground lead going into it. Both of those make me think that the quality on construction on these is pretty darn poor on the boards. I mean, to be fair, we know it's pretty poor. It's produced for $20 retail, so that right there tells you that it's going to be pretty low quality mass production. Although, you know, if it works, then they probably did a pretty good job. If it doesn't work, then that's a little suspect. Aha, and here's the culprit. So, I was looking around because I noticed there was, this is where the solder blob was, and there was also some solder floating around in here, right down here. There's our culprit. This isn't actually soldered down. So, let me fix that diode to the board, and we'll see if it actually operates after that. A bit of solder later, and, well, after my snipping, it's no longer connected to the sense line for the power, so let's see what we get now. I'm assuming it'll at least light up if I apply power to it. Again, I don't know if I mentioned, but you should never do this. This is ridiculously dangerous, just running an open motor. This thing will chew your finger right off. Let's see. And the 18 volts probably isn't too healthy either. Well, in theory, it's probably less damaging than the motor, but... Hey, look at that. I don't know if you can see it, but that is now lit up. Okay, let me get this back together, and we'll see if this thing works now that I've resoldered that diode to the board. Those zebra stripe connectors are usually pretty forgiving. This one fell out while I was trying to get everything back in. Normally, I don't like moving them much if I'm trying to get something back together, just because I don't like to jostle it from its original position. They do tend to be a little touchy as far as being lined up. Although the assembly itself keeps it seated in the right spot, and it should be wedged in the right place. So theoretically, it should go back on properly. Hey, look at that. It's working. Kind of. 188.8 psi. I assume it needs an actual sense to check it, and we don't even have the tube hooked up, so let's get that back on. Hopefully I didn't accidentally initiate the calibration function when I was in there. Let's see if it... Well, interesting. But it does work, and that might have just been from me hitting it. Well, it works after being resoldered. It was defective out of the box, which doesn't exactly instill much confidence in me. Of course, I managed to break the fan immediately, which also, man, this fan just... I guess that's strong enough, but that did not take any abuse whatsoever. So I don't know. These, I think with the way it was in here, it would have just nailed that spring from the wobbly action of the motor, and probably destroyed itself in pretty short order anyway. So I'll get one of my replacement fans printed up for this and get it on there so it'll function properly as soon as I get the printing. And I'm still getting calibrate on here, so I wasn't able to actually test it out and see if the digital readout's okay. The pump is pumping all right. So what we've got here is about the same design as the previous pump for the pump part. The digital readout is a bit suspect because this one was defective from the factory, and then when I resoldered it to get it working again, now it's just displaying calibrate and not reading anything. So I'll have to go figure out what's up with that and see if I can fix it. But I assume there's some calibration process that needs to be done for this. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe the pressure sensor is just defective too. Wouldn't be surprising. And I don't know. Still not too keen on the pressure needed for the switch. It's on second try when I actually had it in my hand, you do tend to just set this thing off constantly. It would be nice if it had a lock on this one. As much as I dislike those on most things, having a lock on this so that it wouldn't just constantly fire itself would be kind of nice. And that's about it. So I mean, you should probably buy something better if you need an air pump, but it's functional if you don't mind re-greasing it periodically and replacing the fan and well, resoldering your digital readout. So if you have a comment, please leave it down below, and I'll see you next time.